Hello everyone, this is the second video to go along with a lasting tribute, the text that we are reading as we begin to practice our test-taking strategies for the English 2 EOC. Bear with me as I go through this. I'm going to do it exactly as if it were real time. I haven't prepped anything ahead of time so that you kind of see what it will feel like for you. So yesterday, just to review, we started our Cornell Notes. We wrote the title of the piece at the top. We also divided our paper into two sections with keywords from the question on the left and then our notes on the right. So what we're going to do today is actually read the text, because remember the strategy we discussed yesterday is do not read the text first, go straight to the questions. That way you can figure out what you are reading for. So today we're going to read the text and take some notes over on the right-hand side. Remember, in terms of spacing, I've lined up all of the numbers so it's very easy and clear for me to see. Let's take a moment to review what we're looking for. So the first question is about an objective summary. So we want to look at the piece as a whole, and remember, objective means non-emotional. It's like a newspaper account of an event. So we won't find any emotional language in any of the answer choices that we would choose for this. Next, we wanted to look at the author's purpose in providing a summary of the trip at the beginning, and then moving into description of the Taj Mahal. 29, we wanted to look at the last sentence of the first paragraph. So I know when I get there I need to kind of slow down and stop. We need to make sure we can figure out what indelible means. Number 30, we want to figure out what is inferred in paragraph 6. Number 31, what is the meaning of synonymous with India itself? So when I get to this quote, I need to slow down. Paragraph 3, there's a whole section about the morning sun, and remember, we didn't write the whole quote down. We just wrote down a portion because it was really long, and part of the purpose of this is to help save us a little time. But when I get to that, the morning sun, I want to make sure I kind of stop for a moment and take a few notes. 33, we need to look at the last paragraph and what it meant with that section that started as I departed. 34, the purpose of the entire selection. So we want to know the objective summary and then the purpose of the entire selection, which is going to be different from the purpose of the beginning. And then how does the writer unfold his ideas about the Taj Mahal? And then we have a constructed response. We're going to take a few notes on that too. How does the author's use of language advance his point of view? So we'll take a few notes over here just to help us as we plan for that paragraph. So I'm going to put my notes over to the side. I'm going to begin reading. My visit to India could hardly be summarized in mere words. Toward the end of my trip, I already carried many memories. The taste of spicy dishes, the colors and aromas of the bazaars or markets, and the kind faces of people I'd met, all were hallmarks of my visit. But of course, no trip to India would be complete without a visit to the Taj Mahal. One of the most famous buildings in the world, the site is synonymous with India itself. Now wait a minute. We had a question about that. I'd saved my visit until the end of the trip because I knew it would leave an indelible impression. So here are two questions right here, question 29 and question 31. Now see, if we hadn't have read the questions first, we would have just kept on reading. And then we would have forgotten what it was we read when we got to the questions. So that's another reason for the strategy. Often if you read the passage first and then you go look at the questions, you don't know what it was you were reading for and you forgot what you read, and then you have to go back and reread anyway. So 31 is what dealt with synonymous with India itself. So the whole sentence is, one of the most famous buildings in the world, the site is synonymous with India itself. Well, now I might not know what synonymous means, but I can figure out from the rest of the paragraph that the Taj Mahal must be important if I didn't know anything about the Taj Mahal. And that people recognize it from India. And the author also mentions in that paragraph that he saves it for last. Have you ever heard the phrase, save the best for last? That might be important with the synonymous with India itself. You know, he wanted to save this place that people recognize from around the world. Now, another question was 29 in that section. The last sentence, the first paragraph, indelible. I knew it would leave an indelible impression. Well, now he talks about here, no trip to India would be complete without a visit to the Taj Mahal. No trip would be complete. And that the Taj Mahal is one of the most famous buildings. So I'm going to write those notes down. No trip to India complete. Famous building. You can't see what I'm writing. And let's see if we can make some guesses about what indelible might mean. It might be permanent. I knew it would leave a permanent impression. You can write down whatever other words you think it might mean. So far I have notes about question 31, and unfortunately notice the questions don't go in order of the reading necessarily, so there is some back and forth. The Taj Mahal is important. It's recognized in India. He saves it for last. No trip to India complete. This is a famous building. So maybe indelible means permanent. Now, it also did ask about the author's purpose in that summary at the beginning about the trip and then moving into the description. So I'm going to carry on and read paragraph 2 because that will help me with number 28. As our tour bus approached the famous site, I recalled the sorrowful story behind the great structure. Although many people assumed that it was once a palace, it was actually a tomb, more like the Great Pyramids of Egypt. The mausoleum was built by Emperor Shah Jahan, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, in memory of his wife Mumtaz Mahal, which means chosen one of the palace. It's a beautiful name. After exiting the bus and lining up to enter the site, I began to get a sense of how Shah Jahan wished to honor his late wife. The morning sun was still low in the sky, and the shiny white marble reflected a soft pink hue, giving the grounds an ethereal quality. Look at that. They have a number here, and there's a question about it. So, why does the writer include this sentence? And what does ethereal mean? Well, the writer's talking about the morning sun was still low in the sky, so it's just coming up. Things are still kind of that grayish, misty color, the soft pink hue from the sunrise, giving the grounds an ethereal quality. Well, ethereal seems like it's an important word. And again, you might not know what it means, but you can tell from the context of the sentence that maybe it's an otherworldly quality, an imaginative quality, like it doesn't seem quite real. It's so beautiful. And that might be why Shah Jahan chose this spot, because of its beauty. So yeah, we're thinking with the text. So those first 3 paragraphs, and we'll go back to 32, let you get that real quick. So purpose of paragraph 3, maybe to show how the setting is this otherworldly, it's imaginative, to potentially show why the Shah chose this spot. It seems to be a very beautiful place based on this writer's description. So if I go back up to number 28 and I look at these first 3 paragraphs, we have a description of the writer's trip. The writer didn't just jump right into the Taj Mahal was built by Shah Jahan. He wanted to honor his wife Mumtaz. You know, that sounds kind of like an encyclopedia entry. But these 3 paragraphs help to lead you into the story. So they help you to anticipate what will come next. So to me, the purpose is to provide interest for the story. Draw readers in. And also to help readers understand the importance of the Taj Mahal. Now notice as I'm taking notes, I'm not even writing in complete sentence. And in some cases, I'm going to abbreviate Taj Mahal. So I still need objective summary. When we get to paragraph 6, I need to figure out what's inferred there. The last paragraph, we need to look at that, the purpose of the entire selection, and then unfolding the ideas. So really the rest of these questions, except for the last paragraph and paragraph 6, I'm looking at the piece as a whole, so I'm going to continue reading. Shah Jahan and Mumtaz met at a bazaar within the walls of the royal palace when he was 15 and she was 14. So see, now it sounds like a report. Shah Jahan was immediately smitten, but the two didn't marry until 5 years later, in 1612. The pair was inseparable from that time until her death in 1631. For 2 years he grieved, and it is said that in this time his hair turned gray and he damaged his eyes from crying so much. It was during this period that he commissioned the Great Tomb. Let's pull this up just a little bit. To convey the depth of his love for Mumtaz, he wanted the building to be grander and more beautiful than any such building that had ever been constructed. Exploring the Taj Mahal, I felt a sense of solemn mourning and was overcome by the larger-than-life gesture that the site represented. I was amazed by the magnitude and the detail of the site. Clearly, the Shah had wanted to make a significant statement. Now notice paragraph 6 is marked. You need to pay attention. That's for question 30. Construction of the Grand Tomb began 6 months after Mumtaz's death and took more than 17 years to complete. It utilized a council of the best architects and had a workforce of more than 20,000. Well, now we're starting to give some data. So I'm going to start writing these notes down. 6 months after death. Maybe he used those 6 months to plan. 17 years to complete. And then 20,000 in the workforce. That's a lot of people, a lot of time. Best architects. Marble and precious stones were collected and sent to the work site, and when the memorial was finally completed, it rose to a height that was taller than a modern 20-story building. Its interior housed fine carpets, intricate mosaics, gold lamps and candlesticks, and many other rare and precious materials and goods. Wow, this sounds expensive. You have fine carpets. Let's see what else he purchased. Marble. Marble is very expensive. Mosaics. That's where you take stones of different colors and you put them all together to form some kind of picture. It's really a piece of art. It's very time consuming. Cost a lot of money to purchase all of those. So when I look at all of this, I'm thinking ultimately this is very expensive. That's my ultimate thought with this. That must have cost a lot of money. I mean, think about it. If you watch any TV shows about house building and, you know, people just doing renovations that might last, I don't know, a couple of months, and they're spending tens of thousands of dollars. Can you imagine building for 17 years and having a workforce of 20,000 people that you need to pay? So I'm thinking that was probably pretty expensive. Building the Taj Mahal was Shah Jahan's obsession for decades. His preoccupation may have contributed to his downfall, because in 1658, one of his sons, can you imagine, one of his own children, Aurangzeb, was able to overthrow the ailing Shah Jahan to take the throne for himself. Aurangzeb then imprisoned Shah Jahan in a tower of the Red Fort in Agra, where he died several years later. Oh my goodness, he was already heartbroken to begin with his wife's death, and now his son has put him in prison. As I departed from the site, so now we're finished with all of this detail about how the Taj Mahal was built and why it was built, moving back to the writer. As I departed from the site, I was reminded of the cruel twist of Shah Jahan's fate, for from his prison, which was located across the river from the Taj Mahal, he was afforded a perfect view of the monument he had raised for his eternal love. Oh, that's sad. So, objective summary. Now remember, objective means no emotion. So I just mentioned how that's sad. Well, that's not going to be in an objective summary, nothing about sadness. So the objective summary is that this is about why and how Taj Mahal was built. And it also tells us a little bit about the Shah's relationship with life. Again, there will be no emotion. So we're looking for answer choices that don't have emotion. So look, we have completed notes for everything on the front, and we go on the back. Now, with that last paragraph I just read, what was it I said? Oh, that's sad. So I'm going to write that here. I'm left with this feeling of sadness at the last paragraph. Why am I left with sadness? Well, A, his son imprisoned him. B, he spent his days across from his wife. Well, across from his wife's monument. So that must have been very bittersweet. He was able to see this beautiful place he built in his wife's memory while he's in prison. Can you imagine? The wife who was the mother of the son that ended up imprisoning him. Now, in terms of the purpose of the entire selection, we want to look at our verbs there. So, describe building the Taj Mahal. Describe the relationship. So how does he unfold his ideas? He begins with description of trip. And you know what I just realized? I'm saying he all the way through. And we don't have an author's name. Let's just say the writer. Begins with description of trip. In the middle, moves to let's say an account of building, and then at the end ends with personal thoughts. So many writers will introduce a topic in one way, in this case beginning with that personal description of the trip, and then they'll move to a different type of writing in the middle, but they'll come back to what they did in the introduction. Now, in the constructed response, it asks about how the author's language conveys the writer's point of view. Now, these are tough because, number one, they just use the word language. Well, what types of language does the writer use? Well, there's some imagery in there with the description at the beginning. And then the writer also includes details of the building specifically. So when they ask about language, you need to identify some specific types of language. And then the point of view. Well, what do you think the writer's point of view is on the Taj Mahal? Based on what we read, I believe the writer feels the Taj Mahal is important. It's important to visit. It's an important part of India's history. And in terms of architecture, it's important with its beauty and how long it's lasted. So notice I'm taking a few notes. This will help me organize my ideas when I go in to write my constructed response. So now we have a full set of notes for every single question. I have really focused my reading, focused my questions. So again, this would be step 2 in completing your reading for the EOC. So step 1, you take notes about the keywords from the questions, as we practiced yesterday. Today, we're practicing reading and taking notes based on the reading. Again, notice, did not write in complete sentences. I still have some space. I can read everything very, very clearly. I've taken some time to go through and really think through these questions, which is going to help me later. So again, this is a review of taking notes using the Cornell method while you are taking your English 2 EOC.